How's everybody doing today? How's everybody doing today? Today is Thursday. We are now in a new month, June, and we are coming to you live from the forest, the political forest. Um, as always, I am your host, American Lumberjack, and it's a pleasure to be here with you guys to bring you truth, to bring you reality, and to bring you things that the government probably isn't going to tell you and just not even talk about. The major news media outlets aren't going to do it. So, uh, it is a beautiful day and it's been a beautiful week. So I hope everybody out there is doing well. And before we get into this, as always, we need to open in prayer and give God some love. Dear Heavenly Father, God, we thank you for today. We thank you for this awesome opportunity that you've bestowed upon us once again for another week to come out and speak truth, speak love, and speak righteously towards what's going on in our country and around the world that affects our country, Lord. You are the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, Lord, and you have designed these things in this world and in this life to give you glory, praise, and honor. So, Lord, we want to praise you with truth. We want to praise you with openness, Lord. In Jesus' mighty name I pray. Amen. Guys, I have a wonderful show for you today, so I'm hoping you will enjoy it. And I'm pretty sure I got things that you don't know about and things that are probably going to make you kind of pissed off. So, without further ado, let's get to it. You know, one of the biggest dangers in this life that we live isn't always what you can see with your natural eyes, right? Sometimes it's what we don't see. Sometimes it's the story but buried beneath the headline. Because most people, let's just face it, the world's attention span gets smaller and smaller. The average attention span in the United States for the youth is like 8 seconds. We can call them Dory or a goldfish with this. And so they read a headline, and in that headline, they're just like, hey, that's something. And then they go speaking towards it without any factual context or information behind it. They just run off with the headline. And sometimes there's stories buried beneath that headline where the headline is just to clickbait you in and you miss the truth from what's being put there. And sometimes even buried beneath the story is an agenda. I have no agenda other than to tell you the truth. So that's what we're going to do today. The policy hidden inside of the legislation that we deal with in America is outrageous, right? There are warning signs we ignore because something is louder or brighter, and it's called a distraction technique. It's look at my right hand while I pick your pocket with my left hand kind of mentality, right? So on tonight's episode, we're calling this "What Are We Missing?" Because there's always something missing if you don't go looking for it, and sometimes even after you look, you don't see it. Because every story we're covering tonight has the same question hiding underneath. And a couple of these stories I might go off the rails. So I'm just going to forewarn you now. I might lose it tonight because some of these things are outrageous. So, what is happening while we are looking somewhere else, right? And before we jump into it fully, I want to start with a verse that perfectly captures this idea. Hosea 4:6 out of the Bible says, "My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Because you have rejected knowledge, I will also reject you. Thus saith the Lord." You are in a world where knowledge is power. And there's this game that this Russian student created a long time ago for a class called Werewolves and Villagers, where the headmaster of the game and two selected werewolves that the everyone doesn't know who's who will communicate with each other on taking a villager out each night. And these people are living their lives, their day-to-day lives, and the werewolves go in and they take somebody out. And then the morning wakes up, everyone and the birds are singing, and the villagers find that one of their friends or family members has been taken. And they don't know from who, where, or what. But then the collective has to then discuss amongst each other who they believe took the life of the friend, family member, neighbor, whatever. And do you know about 95% of the time the wolves win? Because an informed minority will always beat an uninformed majority, unless the uninformed majority goes ham. But normally what ends up happening is the villagers take out everyone but the wolves. They take out everyone but the werewolves. And this is what's happening around the world and world's governments today, especially. Knowledge matters. Awareness matters. And if we are going to stop paying attention to what is happening around us for what we want to see, that serotonin, that dopamine hit, right? Someone else is going to gladly step in and decide what we can see and what we don't see. So let's get into it. Our first story here today is veins of the cartel, right? So, Trump has been trying to shut down the cartel and shut down drugs into the United States. Federal agents are saying that they've come across and uncovered one of the most sophisticated cross-border drug tunnels that we've seen in many years. And this very little tunnel that's been found is in Southern California. And here's the crazy part, right? Because there's some nonsense going on here. It wasn't hidden, right? It was in the middle of nowhere. It was allegedly operating beneath what we would consider in America a discount store. And discount stores are huge in America, right? So this was all in San Diego. Authorities say the tunnel stretched about 2,000 feet from Otay Mesa into Tijuana, Mexico. And this wasn't just some crude hole in the ground that was dug up by a bunch of very hungry people for money or drug dealers. This was done very well. And so, according to the investigators, the tunnel included a full-blown ventilation system, lighting and electricity, a rail cart system to transport back and forth, hydraulic lifts, and reinforced walls. AKA, in other words, this wasn't improvised. This was a full-blown infrastructure. Federal prosecutors are going on to say that agents had been watching. And this is where I want to stop a little bit, right? Why is it that these agents, the FBI, CIA, NSA, why are they always watching these things happen? For instance, like when they say, hey, this person was on the FBI watch list and we knew they were just going to go kill somebody. We knew that they were stockpiling weapons. We knew all of these things. And I'm not one for violating someone's constitutional rights. But if you're watching them and you know this person's going to do this, put a tell on them. We spend and waste enough government money on dumb stuff that the taxpayers is giving the government. Why not take this money and put a tell on these people? And when they get ready to go do what they're going to do, someone can intervene before actual lives are lost, right? Y'all put people in prison for all these other weird things, but these federal agencies and prosecutors are saying that they've been watching this thing unfold. They were watching a storefront called Buy for Less since late 2025. And what caught their attention, they say, was they saw, it wasn't what they saw, it was what they didn't see, right? The store, Buy for Less, had very few customers, very little business activity, but a lot of people moving cargo in suitcases and packages between different vehicles. And eventually, the investigation led to multiple traffic stops and seizures. More than 2,200 pounds of cocaine were found, according to the authorities. All these drugs that they recovered so far were worth tens of millions of dollars. They only caught 4 suspects, which is also suspect in itself. How in the heck do you only catch 4 suspects, but you've been watching this place for this long, and clearly you're going to need more than just 4 people moving this kind of weight? 2,200 pounds is a lot of weight. And if they're moving that kind of drugs, that many drugs, then why is it you only caught 4? And why aren't they ratting on people to save their own skin, right? So they say some of these people could face life in prison if they're convicted. I don't like that. So I believe if you catch someone red-handed, there shouldn't be an if they're convicted. There shouldn't be deals to catch the bigger guy. You convict these people and go get the bigger guy too. Why are we letting criminals off the hook because they're willing to rat on somebody, right? Investigators ultimately believe that the operation was tied to the Jalacoso or Jalesco, something. It's Hispanic. There's this new cartel, and it's a new generation cartel, often referred to as CJNG. It is one of the fastest growing and most powerful cartels operating in Mexico today. And I find it even funnier because the Mexican president, she said that she didn't want Trump's help on this issue. That, hey, Trump, we don't want you coming in with the military and stopping the cartel. Well, why not? It would seem that she doesn't want them to do this because she's probably more than likely, and I'm speculating here, getting kickbacks in some way, shape, or form, or she's afraid of the cartel herself. But why would you be afraid if the military is going to come in and help you out, right? So, according to authorities, this tunnel may have been one of the major arteries into the United States for a while now, right? Here's what stood out to me in this ultimately. This wasn't just a drug tunnel, this was an engineering project. So we have to think about this, right? Ventilation, power, rail system, hydraulic equipment, reinforced construction that allegedly, possibly only took place from one side to the other. This took time. This took a lot of money. This took a lot of planning. And yet somehow it existed beneath our feet. That's why I titled the segment Veins of the Artery, because that's exactly what these tunnels are. They're veins, hidden pathways, moving money, drugs, and hell, even people, because you know they're trafficking people. People don't just up and disappear without a trace unless you put them in a tunnel and smuggle them off somewhere. So it's also a tunnel of influence across the border. And every time one gets discovered, you wonder and have to really wonder how many others are there. Now, I know when Trump took office in 2025, he shut down a lot of these tunnels. And even in under Biden's term, they were discovering these tunnels. But how many of them that they haven't found? Because the border is pretty big and a wall won't stop tunnels. However, Trump's request for the wall included things that would do subterranean monitoring for tunnels and so on and so forth. But still, it's baffling that we have gotten to this point in general. So authorities ultimately are saying that this is one of the first major cross-border tunnels discovered in Southern California since 2022, and one of nearly 100 since 1990. Right? I think that 100 discovered that tunnels is a problem. And you should have had a task force in California searching for this. Again, you're taking state and federal taxpayer funding to do things in the government that ain't benefiting the people, but shutting down drugs being filtered into communities or through the border to the rest of the United States is beneficial to the people. So this means nobody knows how many weren't totally discovered. And speaking of things that haven't been, released in, America, right? Google's parent company wants permission to release something on a scale most people haven't heard about. Not drugs, not migrants, not but mosquitoes. 32 million of them. So our next segment here is Operation 32 Swarm. Again, Google's Alphabet parent company, Alphabet, which is the parent company to several other companies, is asking the EPA for permission to release 32 million male mosquitoes as a part of California, across parts of California and Florida over the next 2 years. Yes, you heard that correctly. 32 million over 2 years. That's, do the math, 16 million a year. And their ultimate goal is, a part of this project is Alphabet wants to debug, and they actually even call it Alphabet's debug program. The stated objective is to reduce population of disease-carrying mosquitoes. And I have a question, right? I have a question. How the hell do you know what a disease-carrying mosquito is? I thought a mosquito once bitten, or a person once bitten by a mosquito that has a disease, a blood-borne disease, it could carry it anywhere. And don't all mosquitoes bite? Well, all female mosquitoes bite, right? So it's just odd. It's really odd to me, right? That they're only targeting disease-carrying mosquitoes without ultimately relying on pesticides, is what they're saying. Hey, we want to be environmental friendly, so we want to release these genetically modified and altered male mosquitoes. Well, according to them, once these mosquitoes get out into the wild, they're going to mate, they're going to copulate, and they're going to be sterile. And it's going to sterilize the females as well. So some other mosquito can't come in and copulate and actually make more mosquitoes. And according to the proposal, they would carry a naturally occurring bacterium called Wolbachia. And the problem here is, if you want to be for real, the problem here is this has been done before. Do we not recall Bill Gates doing this through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation? This is done before, been done before. This testing has been done before. And the EPA allowed him to do it. And guess what? Guess what? Take a wild guess at what happened when Bill Gates did it. Nothing. The population didn't decrease. Disease carrying mosquitoes didn't decrease. If anything, it increased. But you know what did happen? You know what did happen? Other bugs started disappearing. Who in here remembers lightning bugs? Very few floating around, if any. I live in the country, so I should see them all the time. I grew up seeing them all the time. Very few. What about dragonflies? Very few, right? So is this and consequently, dragonflies and lightning bugs, these are ecosystem bugs. You got bats that are missing now. There used to be tons of bats in summer nights. You see bats tweeting and eeping and ducking and diving and swooping, grabbing bugs and stuff like that. I don't see that happening anymore. Why? Why? This doesn't make sense to me. And if the EPA allows this, and we don't truly know what they're putting into these mosquitoes or into the ecosystems of Florida and California, what is really going on? What is really going on? Because they're not going to divulge what they're really doing. They'll give you some information, but not all information. And this, again, what are they hiding? What are we missing? What are we not seeing? Because they're not telling us the whole story. Because if they were telling us the whole story, we wouldn't have pesticides in our food. Oh, well, these are residual pesticides from when they harvested this right here. Well, why do we have Red 40, which is a genetically, or not genetically, but which is a lab-made material? Why do we have all of these glycophates and things put in our food? It makes no sense. It seems to me that we're being played day in and day out. And they give you just enough information or a headline for you to just be like, oh, it's okay. It's okay. But this story really isn't about mosquitoes. It's about trust. It's about whether people believe large corporations, government agencies, and scientific institutions. They have fully considered the long-term effects of what they're doing. And when their answers aren't clear, skepticism needs to grow, and it does grow in some communities. Ultimately, it's not going to spread big because most people don't care enough. As long as they got their lights, their cell phone, and some food, they're okay. But when you are talking about 32 million of anything, you have a problem. And I just want people to really, really dial back. Honest to God, I want you to dial back and really look at this stuff through a proper lens. Stop just accepting what you're told. The world was lied to about certain things, aka COVID. We were lied to. We got documentation proving that they lied from the companies that did the things that they did. But we continue to believe the government at every drop, every word that they say. It makes no sense. And I'm not saying be anti-government. I'm saying hold that government accountable for their actions. Why? When did we stop holding the government accountable? We just let them do what they do, how they do it, and we are the ones that get the repercussions of their actions. They live above their actions. They're in the ivory tower, so to speak. So they're quietly building things here and there, and we don't ask the right questions or don't ask at all. So if they're quietly building things while the public's attention is somewhere else, because you're distracted. Most people didn't know about Bill Gates doing this back in 2018. But we know that Alphabet's doing now, and you might not have known unless you are an advantageous seeker of information. You might not have known if I didn't bring it to you. But when your attention is somewhere else, Congress is advancing legislation that could have major implications for Americans and American military's future. So the next segment right here, this is when I might go off the rails on, I might not be able to control myself. To be completely honest, I might not be able to control myself. And so bear with me, please. The next segment here is alliance or entanglement. While Americans are focused on inflation, border security, crime, and the economy, Congress is quietly advancing legislation that could significantly deepen military cooperation between the United States and Israel. And most people are like, oh, well, that's a good thing. And if you're against it, you're anti-Semitic. It's wild to me. You can critique any country, any government on the planet, except for even America's government. You can critique it. You can critique it. You can get on its head. You can do it. But talk about Israel, you're anti-Semitic. All that other weird stuff. But I'm not. That's not what this topic is about. Because there's some things in this legislation that just passed Congress yesterday that are a problem. So buried in this House Armed Service Committee version of the fiscal year for 2027 National Defense Authorization Act in Section 224, known as the United States-Israel Defense Technology Cooperation Initiative, supporters are calling it cooperation. Critics are calling it something else. And hi, I'm a critic. I'm a critic because I don't just accept what the politicians say when they string together beautiful soliloquies of words that tickle my ear. I ain't one of them. I'm one of those people that'll sit back, pick apart what you said, go read the whole bill, which I've read this whole bill, and it's got several sections, not just 224, but several sections, which we might get into if I can keep my composure. We might get into it, but it's got several sections that are quite literally very, very weird, very weird, and it almost seems like they're trying to create something that shouldn't exist, right? So the proposal expands joint, listen to my words, joint weapons development co-production agreements. We already have a joint weapons development cooperation and production. We already have that. That exists now. That's one of the very few things that we get from Israel. This country does not benefit America very much. Oh, but they give us information about the Middle East. How many successful operations have we gone to the Middle East over from information from Israel? How many have there been? I'll wait. None. Okay, that's all the time I'm gonna put to that. But so it expands the joint weapons development of co-production agreements, technology transfers. It does not say what kind of technology transfers. It just says technology transfers. Just to help you guys out so you can understand the way the boat is rocking, technology transfers can be information, personal information. Yeah. Military research programs, industrial partnerships, and even create a Pentagon position dedicated to coordinating defense cooperations with Israel. That is infiltration. That is infiltration. I need you to understand this. That is infiltration of the United States. I'll get to it in a second. Because I'm trying to stay on the rails as hard as I can, but my train is rocking and rolling. I'm about to go off the cliff here, right? This goes beyond foreign aid. It goes beyond military assistance, which all we have ever done was aid and assistance, right? From all of the treaties to the Lend-Lease Acts to the memorandums of understandings, that's all we've ever been with this country, and it's all we've ever been really and truly with any country who we consider allies. But now, this has other countries in an uproar, by the way. So if you pull your head out of the sand long enough to go look at what other countries are saying about this, you might want to be concerned because they're concerned, right? For decades, America's Americans were told that billions of taxpayer dollars sent overseas were a necessity to support an ally. Yeah, but what do we get? Some rusty, dusty intel that turns out to be nothing. There was no weapons of mass destruction. So what are we getting? Because you don't have any real natural resources that we could trade. You can't benefit us in that manner, but you're going to get our taxpayer dollars, right? Now Congress is considering linking portions, not just a little portion, massive portions of Americans' defense technology and ecosystem to another nation. That is foreign infiltration. The Constitution applies to America, not other nations. And this makes it even, this really puts a microscope on this and brings it more into perspective for me when you look at how two Republican senators several times tried to attempt to create a system that people from America serving in Israel's, only specifically Israel's military, would get the same benefits as an American serving in the United States military. Wait a minute. Why isn't Israel giving those people who are serving in Israelis' military benefits? Why are we, American taxpayers, paying for someone that's not even fighting for us? How many times has Israel come to our aid? Matter of fact, in the last 40 years, how many times have we been in conflicts with anyone that's not in the Middle East? Uh-oh. Let's make it make sense here. But this is going to bind us through the American defense technology ecosystem more closely with another country's military industrial apparatus. Supporters are arguing that this strengthens deterrence against Iran, improves military readiness, and accelerates weapons development. No, it doesn't. Do you know how much money the United States gives Israel for weapons developments? What is wrong with you people? Have you lost your ever-loving, God-forsaken mind? We give these people billions of dollars a year outside of the Memorandum of Understanding's $3.67 billion that we're giving them, which is probably going to go up again in 2028 when they renew it. This is not accelerating anything but the downfall of America. This is my opinion and my opinion only. You don't have to agree with me, but I'm able to be completely non-biased and remove myself from the situation and look at it clearly. And then when I reinsert myself into the situation, I'm going to tell you how I see it. The critics, on the other hand, are saying this is something different. And a lot of the critics agreeing with me, right? What exactly does America gain that it cannot accomplish on its own? Now, you hear Benjamin Netanyahu, and this is over the recent years, Israel wants to pull away from using the United States as aid. We want to stand on our own. Oh, by all means, go stand on your own. Now, just yesterday, he tweets, we want to move away from aid and into a partnership. What? A partnership is mutually beneficial, my friend. You get something, I get something. You give, I give. You get, I get. What do you give us? Because follow me here. If you guys are still listening, follow me here. They have a better quality of life than Americans. They live longer. They have better health. And it's not because they eat better, but it's just everything's better. They have free health care. Oh, you liberals that are out there listening, you want your free health care? Israel's got it. They get free health care because of America. They have free schooling because of America, college education. Oh, no, they get free schooling because they get conscripted for 2 years into the military. Bull crap. It's because we're paying for it. Who pays for their military? We do. Do you think that they could run that Iron Dome without America? Nope. Already did the math. If America were to financially stop supporting Israel right now, they would have to increase the tax percentage on each person, paying person, 35%. Each of them, just to be able to provide the munitions for their Iron Dome. The free education goes away. Free healthcare goes away. The good food that they eat goes away. The quality of life decreases. The age that they pass away decreases. Why? Because there's more stress on them. They have less stress because we are footing all of the bills. Benjamin Netanyahu has openly discussed moving beyond aid towards partnership, y'all. A partnership cuts both ways. The closer two military systems become, the harder it becomes to separate them strategically from their interests. So we are already aligned with Israel with their mission to destroy Iran. And if you guys have been following the show for any amount of time, and I hope you have, if you haven't, I'm going to remind you, Pete Hegseth sat before Congress with his pompous ass sitting, we are trying to destroy the ambitions of Iran from getting a nuke. You can't destroy someone's ambition without destroying them. These people are religious zealots that would do any and everything to obtain their goal, right? Or allegedly, because we got all the information from Israel about them being 2 weeks away, months away. And this is Benjamin Netanyahu. I played a clip not too long ago on a show where he sat here, multiple super clip, where he was like, hey, they're going to have a nuke. They're months away. They could be weeks away. They have enriched their uranium. They don't have an ICBM. China's not going to give them one. China's not stupid. We are their biggest customer. China would not cut us out, because if China lost America, they would lose, I think, about 20% of their total overall income, and they wouldn't be able to make up that difference in other nations, because the other nations they just don't have what we have, right? So they would lose a hard 20% if they got rid of us. So China's not going to give them an ICBM, which is an intercontinental ballistic missile. They're not going to give it to them. So you don't have to worry about them getting that. So the only ones that have to worry about anything, because this is how Benjamin Netanyahu spun it, is that they could be able to strike America within a couple of years. Bro, you've been saying that crap since 1985. And it's not happened yet. If these people who are religious zealots, who sing and chant death to America, are as hard as they are, and is willing to do what they are going to do, one, you're not going to be able to stop that overall, and two, they would have already have done it, because America's the only thing standing in the way of Israel being taken over by other nations in the Middle East. But Israel's so great, right? You're so great, right? And for all those weirdos that say, God said in the Bible, those who bless Israel shall be blessed, and those who curse Israel shall be cursed, you can't read. Israel didn't exist when he told Abram that, because Abram wasn't even Abraham yet. America has allies all over the world. We cooperate with allies. We train with allies. We share intelligence with allies. But we do not permanently build structures inside of our defense establishment specifically designated for the allies. We don't do it. We have never done it. And other nations are freaking out about this move, because they're like, hey, that's strange. You're making moves that have never been made before. Moves that could actually affect us in the long run. What is going on? We don't get this close-knit relationship. And these are allies that actually give us stuff, that actually are mutually beneficial. So again, I am not being anti-Israel or anything of the sort, or anti-Semitic. You're anti-Semitic if you don't like Muslims, because Muslims are Semites, linguistically and genealogically. So far be it from me to be okay with being called something that I'm not, first and foremost. And secondly, you guys haven't sat down to read. And there's other sections in this bill that just passed the House and hopefully get shot down in Congress that are just not good. They're not good. And the senators that put this together are getting, let's look at it from this perspective. I told you guys a few weeks ago that 363 current sitting congressmen get paid by AIPAC. I told you this. Give me 1 second. Let me see if I can pull this up. Let's see here. because it really it doesn't. This really doesn't make any sense. This level of just willing to just bend the knee, it doesn't make any sense, right? All right, let's see here. I can't find it, but there's 363 members of Congress that receive APAC funding. A lot of these congressmen also receive funding from Lockheed Martin, which is a military company. They get kickbacks and stuff like that. Lockheed Martin are owned by Jews, Jewish people who are very close to to Israel, right? They're very close with Israel. So it seems like a conflict of interest that you are receiving funds from a nation through corporations to pass legislation that benefits them. It makes no sense to me, man. Like I said, we have allies everywhere, and we don't build these permanent fixtures. We don't. The issue isn't whether Israel has a right to exist, because this is what I hear chirping in my ear. We have a right to exist. Yes, yeah. I don't care. I don't care. You can exist or not exist. That's up to you. But that shouldn't be up to American taxpayers to fend off for you every single time. So here's the crazy thing. Here's the crazy thing. Because, like I said, I'm trying not to go off the rails, but I'm gonna go off the rails anyway. Name one conflict that Israel's been in that's come to a completion. Still fighting with Iran. Still fighting with Palestine. They still catching fades from the what do you call it? ISIS, Hamas, the Houthi. You got all of these people fighting these people, and no one stops to ask why. Because these people do fight amongst themselves as well, but it's not to the degree that they all seemingly want to go after Israel. Most Americans already agree on those points, though, that you can exist. We don't care that you exist. We don't care that you defend yourself. You can do those things. I agree that you can do those things. The real question here is, should any foreign government have this level of integration with America's military? That's what you should ask, and America's military future. What happens if America's interests and Israeli interests diverge? Because this is not going to be a simple divorce between two things if this legislation passes. Because once you start wiring things together and getting harnesses together and integrating roots for here and there, when you go to pull those things apart, it's going to break things within both. And America can't afford to be broken from the inside. What happens when Washington wants one thing and Jerusalem wants another? What happens when a future conflict breaks out that America has no desire to join? Because history shows that commitments tend to grow, programs expand, partnerships deepen, and eventually the American people are told that backing away is no longer an option. And that's how I feel about this Iran crap. This Iran crap makes me feel the same way. Oh, we got to stop them because they're hurting people. Oh, we got to stop them because they are trying to get weapons of mass destruction. Oh, we're there to stop the oil to China and Russia. Oh, they said death to America. You didn't do crap when the people were chanting on Michigan State, Ohio State, South Carolina, and several other campuses all across the country, death to America. In Michigan, they had to go in with the National Guard to get those people out. You didn't do anything then. But we get all of these excuses as to why we're doing this, and none of them are valid. None of them are actually, because we don't know. Why do you think, y'all think Tulsi Gabbard, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this, but you can disagree if you want, but I can see better than you can. A lot of y'all think Tulsi Gabbard quit to be with her husband. Most of these congressmen and women get enough money to take care of their family without quitting. Most of them lose their family members and still continue to serve. So if you think that that's why she stepped down, you are a buffoon. You're a buffoon. She stepped down because she knew the truth of the matter, because Trump picked her to be what she was. She went over there, did what she did, and told you that hey, according to what we're getting the information from the IAEA or the EAIA, that there's not much to go off of here, man. And by the way, America and Israel created the EAIA, by the way. Just want you to know that. So she said there's not what we think, not what we're being told. Then a week later, Trump calls her stupid and says that she doesn't know what she's talking about. And next thing you know, we're spiraling down this path to go help Israel. Yeah. Lindsey Graham was a big proponent of this. Trump, you need to do this. Uncle Lindsey, you need to go away. Or Auntie Lindsey, rather. America's military exists for the sole purpose of protecting and defending America. Not America's interest, not America's allies. And I'm not saying that we can't go help our allies. I'm not saying that. But the sole purpose of it is to defend America, not become permanently intertwined with priorities of a foreign government, friend or foe. This is the dumbest, and this is a family show. I got to watch my mouth. This is the dumbest crap I've ever seen in my life. And I mark my words, if this bill goes through, this will be the ball rolling down the hill for America's demise. And I hate to say that because I love my country. God knows I love America. I bleed red, white, and blue, but I also bleed common sense and logic. Intertwining with another country, giving countries things that we don't even get ourselves in this country is going to be a problem. And it's not going to be as simple to get out as it was to put in. You're going to have to rip some veins out. And I just wish you guys could understand and see it from the perspective of someone who doesn't care about Israel, but only cares about America. I am America first. I believe that with every fiber of my being. It does not exist for any other country. And I'm not saying that we can't help other nations, but for us to be suffering, bleeding, hurting in any way, shape, or form, and to be doing for other nations what we can't do for our own is a travesty. And this is not a Trump thing. This is not an Obama thing. This is not a Biden thing. This is not a Bush, Bill, none of those. None of those. Reagan, none of those. This is a Congress problem because we keep putting congressmen and women in our office that just receive funding, which honestly, it is a violation of the emolument clause if you really want to get down to the nitty gritty. But most of y'all don't read your Constitution, so you don't even know where the emolument clause is in the Constitution. It's in one of the articles. I'll give you that hint. It is a violation. We're not supposed to be receiving gifts or payment of any kind in government from any foreign agency. This is why they killed John F. Kennedy. Kabuki, he wanted the Zionist pack to register as a foreign agent, FARA. Yeah. And they put one in his head for it. If you want to know the real reason. And I know we do a little bit of conspiracy here, but that's fact. Because he was very much against allowing Israel to do what they're doing now. And as soon as he went away, good old, what's his name? The one, Lyndon Baines Johnson comes in there and does it. Yeah, he does it. Post haste. And now AIPAC, America, that's how they slipped around it. They put America in front of America-Israel pact. There should be no pacts. Lobbying shouldn't exist. Congressmen and women shouldn't be making hundreds of thousands of dollars and then getting kickbacks from corporations and becoming millionaires. Your book wasn't that good. Nobody read Promise Me, Dad, Joe Biden. You didn't make 1 million sales off of this. Stop the cap. Stop playing with us. AOC, you're not that interesting. No one's reading your book. So you're not becoming millionaires off of books. We could see it. We could see it. Like I said, I'll we'll roll off of this one. We'll roll off of this one because if not, I'm gonna make the whole show about this. We're gonna roll off of this one. Yes, AIP. I see it. I know it. I know you know it. So our next story is this is a palate cleanser. As crazy as that might seem, this is a palate cleanser. Trans troops win. They win? Well, a federal court, appeals court, has ruled, and this man, maybe not. This might not be a palate cleanser at all. This might actually be worse. Oh man, because this is the biggest damn oxymoron you've ever seen in your life. But a federal appeals court has ruled that the Pentagon cannot remove current serving transgender troops while the legal battle continues. However, the court also allowed the military to keep its ban on new transgender enlistments. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. The administration's policy agreed that the military readiness and the unit cohesion should be based on biological sex, and gender dysphoria is incompatible in military service. They're right. It is. It's very incompatible. The appeals court majority disagrees and stated that the policy likely violates the Constitution. Wait a minute. Rewind. That the likely violates the Constitution. I be dang. Now, I am no lawyer or anything, but I love to dabble in the law. I love to dabble in it. I defend myself in court, by the way, successfully. I love to dabble in it. But likely, the word likely, I also have an English degree, not to flex on anything or show authority on anything. Just I know a little something about a little something. But the word likely in law is lawfully ambiguous. And when you get into ambiguity, you get into legality where there's a gray area. Likely to violate the Constitution, you're a federal freaking appeals court. You're supposed to be amongst the Supreme Court upholding the Constitution. How in the blue heck, how in the blue heck is it likely to violate the Constitution? It either does or it doesn't. It's not a either or. In that sense, it does violate or it doesn't violate. You can't be either, right? You can't pick and choose. They go on to argue that that the policy appears to target politically unpopular groups rather than support it by sufficient evidence. I told you it was going to get worse. The Federal Court of Appeals says that you are targeting politically unpopular groups. Sir, ma'am, sir. Trans aren't political. And just because they might be politically unpopular, which you're not, because there's a whole other side called Democrats that love them. So it would be 50-50, right? They're not politically unpopular, first and foremost. And then secondly, you said it's not supported by sufficient evidence. A woman that transitions into a man is not physically capable of doing what a man does, no matter how much TRT, testable, Trinabol, or any of those, PEDS, performance enhancing medications they take. They ain't gonna perform on that level. And then a man who then takes this stuff to go the other way becomes weaker. And these people have to take lifetime medication. So if they're bunkered down for 3-4 months, in an area and can't get support and they can't get their medication, they become a liability. So it's very much supported by evidence. And most of these people that are trans are not people that go fight, but the ones that do are a liability. And at the same time, the court stopped short, right? Because I told you it's going to get worse. It's still going to get worse. They stopped short of forcing the military to accept new transgender recruits. Instead, the judges acknowledged that the military still maintains the. Follow me here. Listen real closely. I know y'all are here. I know you're with me. They state that the military still maintains the authority over enlistment standards. My God in heaven. What are we doing? And that's where the ruling gets really interesting. It's been interesting the whole time, really. But because the court is essentially saying the military can decide who it gets in, but cannot necessarily decide who stays. Like I said, likely jumps right off the page to me. I can't even get over that. I can't. I can't. Can you? And if the military maintains the ability to control who can get in the military, they also should have the authority to dictate who gets out. Right? They do. So why is the court intervening in the executive? We're making this about sexuality or genderism or whatever, when in all actuality, the military needs to be proficient, efficient. You can't simultaneously argue that enlistment standards matter while also limiting the military's ability to enforce their own standards. That's why this case is probably headed towards a larger constitutional showdown, because the real issue isn't just transgender service members. The real issue is ultimately who decides the military standards: military leadership, or the executive branch, or federal judges. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, starts in the executive branch and then moves to the military leadership who makes the decision. This is the buffoonery. And they had to drop this crap during LGBT month. This is Men's Mental Health Month. And if you think you're oh, this is a kid show or a family show. If you think that you got mental problems and a demon. Said what I said. But we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on because I'm about to get crazy and maybe I ain't monetized yet, but I would definitely lose it if I said what I wanted to really say. Speaking of government branches fighting over authority, Congress and the White House are now headed towards another collision, right? Yeah. This time over war powers. And I talked about this the past couple of weeks over the war powers situation, but now it's over war powers and Iran and who gets to decide when America enters a conflict. And that this has some constitutional stuff too. But this next story right here is called War Powers Showdown, right? The House of Representatives has delivered a significant rebuke to President Trump's Iran policy. Lawmakers are ultimately passing a war powers resolution by a narrow margin, so you guys know, 215 to 208, for shutting down what Trump is doing, right? 4 Republicans ended up breaking rank and joined Democrats to support this measure. Supporters argue that the Congress, not the president, has the constitutional authority to decide when America enters a war. That is factual. The War Powers Act of 1972 gave the president the ability to enter a conflict up to a certain point before coming back to Congress and telling them why they should continue. As I covered last week, Bill Clinton, Reagan, Bush, Biden, Obama, all of these presidents, Trump might be the only one that hasn't, up until this year, violated this. but every other president has violated this. They believe the administration should not be able to continue military operations against Iran without approval from lawmakers, which, if you go back and do the historical footwork, America's only been in 11 declared wars. But God knows the number of conflicts we've been in, which is crazy as well because the word conflict is in the definition of war and vice versa. You get the point. The resolution now heads to the Senate, where it appears to already have bipartisan support. However, Congress currently lacks the 2/3 majority needed to override President Trump's veto. And they can't get their heads together anyway to do that anyway. This vote exposes a growing divide inside the Republican Party, which we talked about the autopsy report of why the Democrats lost the 2024 election. And you're starting to see some of the same behaviors why they lost happening in the Republican Party. Some members continue to support the administration's actions towards Iran. Others are increasingly questioning America's role in another potential Middle Eastern conflict. We were there for 22 freaking years. 7,089 lives were lost. More were ruined after the fact from what they experienced while they were over there. You got men and women walking around that don't know who they are anymore. They don't recognize their own flesh and blood, their own children, their own wives, their own husbands, their own mamas, daddies, aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, nephews. They don't even recognize them because they're so whacked out in the head. So really and truly, we probably have lost 20 or 30,000 people to other issues. And America cannot afford another full-on Middle Eastern conflict. And nor should they. Nor should they. If you guys can't get it together in your own legislation creation and stand by the truth of your legislation creation and not flim-flam, flip-flop in and out, then guess what? We, the people, reserve the right to say no when you come in and say, we're going to go ahead and do a draft. No, the heck you're not. Especially when you ain't even paying the military. How long did the military go without being paid? Isn't the federal government still partially shut down? Huh? At the core, this is another chapter in a decades-long debate over who America's war powers belong to. Congress has the authority to declare war because they hold the money. Yet the president from both parties have repeatedly used military force without formal declarations of war because it's considered a conflict. We like to play these word games, and when you play word games, you get word problems, my friend. You get word problems. We've seen it under Republicans, we've seen it under Democrats, and now we're seeing it again. Here's what frustrates me about this entire debacle and debate. Everybody suddenly discovers the Constitution when it's politically convenient and still don't know what the hell they're talking about. But I digress. Congress says it has the authority to decide when America goes to war. Cool. Okay. Then they turn around and act like it. They need to turn around and act like it, right? Because if Congress truly believes the Constitution gives them the power, why has this issue remained unresolved for decades? This argument didn't start with Trump. And for those that believe this being the case, you are a buffoon. Okay, Buki, you're a buffoon. It didn't start with Biden or Obama. Presidents have been stretching war powers for generations. And Congress keeps complaining about it while doing very little to permanently clarify the issue like I talked about last week. You give the authority. You can determine what authority you have. The American people deserve clarity. If the military action requires congressional approval, then make that crystal clear. If there's an exception, define that exception and put a hard stop. Stop playing with lives. We have men and women in the military losing. We have lost 13 known. We don't know how many else we haven't lost. We've lost 13 beautiful American souls. And we still ain't got no clarity. If the War Powers Act is inadequate, fix it. Because what we have now is ambiguity and loose booty. The booty is just letting all the crap fly out. But the loose booty in this case is the congressional members' mouths. And then when you have this type of looseness, it creates confusion. The bigger concern is that if we ask 10 Americans, and I stated this last time, why we're involved in Iran, you'll probably get 10 different answers. That's a problem. We have no clarity on why we're there. We have no clarity if Trump can do what he's doing. We have no clarity in anything. And while Congress argues over Americans' roles overseas, millions of Christians around the world, and this is my last segment before I get to the closing segments, right? Millions of Christians overseas are dealing with something different, a whole different reality. One that rarely makes a front page news because it's not a Jew-ish person. It's not the Catholic Church. It's not white people, or no, not my retract that last statement. It's not black people or Asian people. It's not something they can put a minority on. And because it's not Christian, or because it is Christian, we don't want to talk about that. But our next story here and our final story here is, I think I got that right. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Starved for faith. Starved for faith. India's growing community, Christian communities, are now facing a growing pressure in many of their states. Yes, they have states. A lot of poo states, but they have states. Religious freedom advocates say that the situation is no longer limited to isolated incidents or occasional attacks. Reporters are coming in and saying and giving to people that churches and human rights groups and watchdog groups are not essentially happy with what's going on because they're seeing these things happen. They're seeing that this discrimination pattern and persecution has increased tremendously, and that the pressure ranges from intimidation to full-blown violence and efforts to force people to abandon Christianity, right? One of the most alarming freaking recent cases of this in India, and I know people say, oh, this is not nothing to do with America. Sit tight, it's coming this way. Hell, Americans that are Christians get persecuted anyway. God forbid if you're white, believe in God, and in America, because you're a white Christian nationalist, and they call those people Nazis. But you know that, right? You got that. One of the most alarming recent cases comes from the state of Chhattisgarh or something like that. I think it's a long word, hard to pronounce, but y'all got it. Chhattisgarh. More than 180 families, right? Not just 180 individuals, more than 180 Christian families across multiple communities were reportedly denied access to food, water, and employment. According to the reports that come in from this, that some of these families were told the restrictions would end, get this, the restrictions would end if they renounced Christ and returned to their former religious beliefs. When Americans think about religious persecution, many imagine something that happened centuries ago, or something that only occurs in hostile authoritarian countries. For millions of Christians around the world, persecution remains present and a reality that sits in their lap. It's very difficult to call yourself a Christian and not catch some snarky stares or get cursed out. And in some cases, people might try to put their hands on you. And that's here in America. In many places, believers are pressured socially, economically, and sometimes physically, i.e., Africa, the Sudan, where they've killed almost 150,000, probably more than that now. I know at the beginning of 2025, it was up to 150,000 Christians had been murdered by Muslims, right? And while international attention is often focusing on political conflicts, military disputes, and economic issues, stories like these rarely receive any attention, especially at the same level. The coverage is sucked out because we like serotonin, we like dopamine, we like drama. And this drama don't suit us right because they're just Christians, right? When you don't like Jews, you're anti-Semitic, right? What do you call someone that doesn't like Christians? There's no special word for that. No special statement. No movements against that. This story hits differently for me because we're not just talking about politics, we're talking about elections, or not talking about elections, we're not talking about taxes, we're talking about people being denied food, water, and all because they believe in God. Think about that. Food, water, employment, basic necessities. And the only solution they have to change this is to deny Christ. And the Bible says, if you deny me before man, I'll deny you before my Father. So I hope these people stand firm in their beliefs. Now, whether you're a Christian or not, that should make you feel some sort of concern, because that's a problem. And a lot of people in America have this mindset that it's not affecting me, so I don't care. But when it starts knocking on your door, you will. Because religious freedom only matters when it protects people you disagree with. Right? Right? It's easy to defend freedom when it's your beliefs that are already protected. The real test comes when someone else's rights are on the line. And here's where here's what bothers me even more. We hear endless discussions about tolerance, endless discussions about diversity, endless discussions about inclusion from the left. And they are pro-Palestine, Palestine flags, gays for Palestine, get thrown right the hell off a building. But you see all that. But when Christians are being, I'm going to get graphic here because I wholeheartedly believe that we are protected from the truth. So I have a video, but I'm not going to show it, but I will tell you about it, where a mother was in Africa, was hung by Muslims from a tree by her child. They hung the child with a rope, wrapped and tied the baby's legs around the mother's throat, tortured them in a tree, beat them, tied the other baby to her, and the other baby was hung from her leg, and let her hang there and suffocate by her own children. But we don't care about that. We don't care about that because it's not here. But you're a Christian, right? The Bible says that we are brothers and sisters in Christ. We make up the body of the Christ. Ecclesia is church. Ecclesia means people, not a building, not a corporation. It means people. We are all a part of the body of Christ. So if we hurt our finger, we feel it. We hurt our toe, we feel it. Someone rips out our beard, we feel it. But Christians in America, nah, we don't care. We don't care. Because no one should have to choose between their faith and feeding their family. Right? And the fact that we even got to this point at all is absolutely, positively crazy. Because America's so quick, fast, in a hurry to pick up on certain things. And I do applaud Trump for doing what he did when he did go over to Africa to help the Christians out. And him calling that out. I applaud him for that. That is the first president, by the way, to ever have done that. So say what you want about Trump. He's a flawed man, but at least he does benefit the people that he says he cares about. Right? It just, to me, it's asinine, man. We got to do better. We got to do better. And this is why I bring this show to you the way I do, because I want you to do better. I want to inform you so you can be knowledgeable, so you can go out and do something. You have the power. We, the people, have the power. We have the power. But in order to maintain that power, you got to put the government in check. Because as a parent, leave your children alone. What is going to happen? Especially when they get quiet. Nothing good, right? Nothing good, right? So why are we leaving the government, who are our children? They're not our bosses. We pay them. Why are we leaving these people unchecked, unfettered to do what they want? It sure is beyond me. I don't know. I wouldn't do it. But then again, go on with your bad self. I've tried. I write my Congress on a regular basis. I do. I want to keep people informed, and I want to keep my congressmen and women honest. And when they mess up, I call them out. Ted Budd from North Carolina, you need to go. Hop on out of here. Yep. So moving to our ding dong of the day. Check this out. Yeah, sing it. The bluebirds fly. Yes. 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 Yeah, that's enough of that. That's enough of that. That's enough of that right there. We don't need to see no more of that. Why are you all cladded together like you're in a church choir? Somewhere over the rainbow. My friend, the rainbow ain't got 6 colors, it's got 7. You have a bastardized rainbow. You look like a bunch of simpletons. Yeah. Singing like you're a part of a church choir. Got your little hymnal books. Bro, what is going on? What is going on? How did we get here? I know how we got here. We allowed lasciviousness, and it's been allowed for a long time. But Barack Obama allowed the LGBT to be what they are today. He's the progenitor of that, because he could have vetoed that and told Congress, no, we're a country that has, and up until like 1998, I think, or maybe even 2006, every country in the United States, their constitution said, now every country, because technically we're nation states, but I digress. You get me. Every state in the United States, in their state constitution, said that man and woman, right? They recognize marriage between man and a woman, not man and man, woman and woman, thing and thing, it and it, lost and confused and lost and confused. Nah. He ain't do that. Some of these people, want to mess with children too, but you know how I feel about that. We don't play that game at all. And now states are pulling away from that. They're rewriting their constitutions to be inclusive. Not all states, but a few of them. Y'all are a bunch of ding dongs. You're so focused on love is love, which love is not love. God's love is not our love, because our love is perverted and disgusting, because we allow stuff like this. But we need to bring back the mental institutions and the mental help for mental health, because we have lost that in our nation. And you've seen the spread of the ideology, the LGBTQ ideology. You've seen the spread of domestic terrorists in America. You've seen the spread of SSRIs to help people calm down. I saw a video the other day of this girl sitting in her car, and she's like, oh man, this guy's about to back into me. Boom. No facial expression or nothing. Lexapro is what the doctor said she was on in the video. Lexapro, right? The government wants us completely numb to everything. And they want us accepting of everything, because if we accept everything, we'll accept them telling us what we can and can't do. It's just the truth. Tonight, we talked about the cartel tunnels. We talked about millions of mosquitoes being released. We talked about military integration, court rulings, war powers, and foreign policy. But this story right here, with these ding dongs and the LGBT, that takes the cake. It takes the cake, because it really is the antithesis of where we've come to in the United States, where we allow sin to run rampant. And that's exactly what happens if you leave children unattended. They allow sinful things. They'll burn your house down. They'll burn your house down. And this is what's happening in America. Our house is being burned down, my friend, from the inside out. And now, if they pass this legislation with merging the United States to Israel's military, we're in trouble. We are in trouble. And I don't want to be in that kind of trouble. But it's where we're headed, because too many people don't know how to fight back when the government is needing to be put in check. We just want to keep doing it as business as usual. And business as usual is not good business for us. This has been a pleasure to bring you guys this information tonight. I hope you guys can join me next week for another riveting show. And thank you for navigating the political forest with me today. Make sure you're not one of the ones to miss the forest for the trees.